Hi y'all, today we're going to chat about 4 things that I would never do as a pelvic floor physical therapist if I were postpartum. As somebody who works with women through their pregnancy and helping them get back to their activities that they love postpartum, this is going to be the 4 things that I see really get in the way of that goal the most often. But before we jump into that, I want to tell you about a live webinar that I have coming up on September 27th. It is 3 things that you could start doing right away to naturally improve the strength of your core and your pelvic floor. If you're watching this video and it's after September 27th, you should have access to the replay. So either way, the link to that is going to be posted below in this description so that you can check that out if you're interested in it. But now let's get into it. Okay. The first thing that I would never do postpartum as a pelvic floor physical therapist is try to jump right back into my previous level of fitness, my previous baseline of strength, and expect that out of my body and just try to make it happen. So at the end of the day, no matter how well you were able to maintain your activity during pregnancy, just simply being pregnant and also labor and delivery, no matter what type of labor and delivery that you had, all of those scenarios and events require this period of healing time for the tissues. So we have a tissue healing timeline that we know is appropriate after pregnancy and after labor and delivery, and it's just not something that you get to skip, and it's not something that you can speed up. So if we're jumping straight back into and expecting out of our bodies our previous levels of strength and fitness capacity, then that's where we see things like injuries or creating a scenario that now we have to backtrack and rehab your body from. It's also where I see a lot of women down the road having pelvic floor dysfunction, things that they're really not happy with going on with their pelvic floor or even with their core because they didn't respect that tissue healing time. Instead, what we want to do is really take the time to work back into things slowly so that we are building strength and building resiliency into the tissues at an appropriate timeline that respects that healing window. So if we skip respecting that healing window, then we're skipping getting to build that resiliency back into the body, and then we're setting ourselves up for injury or tissue damage or dysfunction down the road. The second thing that I would never do postpartum as a pelvic floor PT is ignore the signs that my body is telling me that I'm doing too much too soon activity-wise. So signs like feeling heaviness or pressure down into my pelvis, feeling soreness or weakness in my pelvic floor muscles, the feeling of that I'm about to pee my pants or actually peeing my pants during a workout, feeling of urinary urgency or frequency that sets on during or after a workout. I think the problem is that a lot of these symptoms, we have been told the lie that these things are just normal and that we are just going to have to get over it because we've had a baby. And so a lot of women push through and ignore these signals that our body is trying to give us, and they just keep going because they were told, oh, well, you're a mom, so you have to deal with that now. But really, if we look at those signs for what they are, they're our body saying, hey, there is like a strength deficit or an automatic pattern or automatic support that hasn't been trained back into your body yet, or that you haven't taken the time to rebuild yet. And you need that for the activity that you're doing or the exercise that you're doing. So instead, I would take that for what it is. I would listen to my body and I would go back to the basics and make sure that I rebuild those foundations back into my system and back into my body so that I could continue to ramp up my exercise, continue to ramp up my activity without having to worry about it. The third thing that I would never do postpartum as a pelvic floor PT is skip retraining my breathing pattern after I've had my baby. So your breathing pattern is the basis for being able to use your core and your pelvic floor efficiently and effectively to support you, especially during exercise. So if we haven't retrained that foundational pattern, then it doesn't matter how strong our core muscles are. It doesn't actually matter how strong our pelvic floor muscles are in some cases. We're not going to be using the muscles correctly. We're not setting setting our body up to be able to use that system correctly. So then we're gonna start to experience problems, maybe not right away, but down the road. In the clinic, and when I'm seeing pelvic floor patients, I will say that the breathing pattern is the number one underlying issue that I find in women that come to see me with pelvic floor problems. So whether it's incontinence, urinary urgency or frequency, constipation, hemorrhoids, pelvic organ prolapse, 9 times out of 10, we can trace it back to a breathing pattern, especially a breathing pattern that never got properly retrained after they had a baby, no matter how long it's been since they had that baby. The fourth and final thing that I would never do postpartum as a pelvic floor PT is skip retraining my automatic core engagement. I don't want to be back in my workouts, back living life with the fear that comes with wondering if my body is supporting itself in a way that will not cause injury or won't cause dysfunction down the road. Instead, I want to make sure that I take those steps to retrain automatic core engagement, correct automatic core engagement, so that my body isn't choosing to compensate with other muscles or other patterns that are going to cause problems down the road. So I want to be back in my workouts, back in my exercises, back living life with the confidence that comes with knowing I trained that back in and that it's happening automatically in the background. So now I get to think about other stuff, right? I get to think about that weight that I'm lifting. I get to think about that exercise class that I'm in. I get to think about the kids that I'm running and playing with, or the hike that I'm on with my friend that I'm talking and catching up with. I don't want to have to think about what my core is doing. I want to be able to trust that it's doing what it's supposed to do in the background because I took the time to retrain it. So that's it for the 4 things that I would never do postpartum as a pelvic floor PT. I want to again invite you to my free webinar that's coming up, 3 things that you can start doing right away to naturally improve the strength of your core and pelvic floor. It covers a lot of the things that we just talked about that are so important for postpartum recovery of your core and your pelvic floor. My promise to you with that webinar is that you are going to walk away with very tangible things that you can start doing, truly start doing right away to feel a difference in how supported you feel from your core and from your pelvic floor. I also want to mention that that webinar, though it's live on September 27th, if you were watching this after September 27th, you can also access the replay. Either way, that link is going to be available for you in the description of this video at the very top. And that webinar is actually the very beginning of my launch week for my new program, Conquer Core Foundations. Conquer Core Foundations is a hybrid between an educational course and also a workout program. So it is a 12-week program that is do at your own pace, all online, delivered through an easy-to-use app so that you can build back the foundational strength into your system, your core, your pelvic floor, and everywhere else in your body that everybody needs to feel strong and supported no matter what your workouts look like, no matter what your goal activities are to get back to, whether it's simply mom life, whether it's really strenuous exercises. Conquer Core Foundations is a 12-week step-by-step process to help you progress back into those things in a really safe and beneficial way. The webinar on September 27th is truly the best place to start. When you jump into that webinar, it's going to give you an early bird discount to the program, and it's also going to give you a free bonus addition to the program that you can't get anywhere else. So whether you're watching the webinar live or you're watching the replay, you're going to have access to that bonus from the webinar, and nowhere else that program is sold is going to offer that bonus addition. So make sure you check out the webinar, and that truly is the best place to start to get information on what we need to be doing to feel more support from our core and our pelvic floor. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you next week.